Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic and comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. And if we really wanted to make these YouTube live numbers pop, we could have put the Toronto chokes. Toronto is choking the series away. Good Lord, with the people in Toronto have been all over us. We'll get into that in a little bit as the Cats have come back and tied that series.
Corey muted himself. The listeners want to hear you, Corey. There you are. Did Corey just use an expletive, Joe?
I can't hear Corey.
Well, we'll carry the show since Corey seems to have disappeared for a little bit. Joe.
Yes.
We have much to discuss. I believe you're in Pittsburgh right now. Is that true?
I am in Pittsburgh.
All right.
My situation and things are rapidly changing in all directions.
Oh.
Let's talk about what our producer wants to talk about, because I know I want to talk about the game I just saw, but Corey wants to talk Sully first, and then we'll talk possible Sully replacements, and then we'll get into we'll thank the great Bill Neofus,
Yes.
and then we'll go around the league. So. Look at this. I guess I'm producing the show. I just started doing what you wanted to do, Corey. So you wanted to talk first, and I'll let Mr. Yohe take the floor. Sully, he really hit home when he was the Rangers coach. Now, what were your first thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, we knew there was a very distinct possibility it could happen. And Sully's been around. I mean, he's been an assistant coach with the Rangers and the Canucks. He's been the coach of the Bruins, so it's not like Pittsburgh was his only stop. But he will always be synonymous with the Penguins. So we all know that. So I'm sure seeing Mike Sullivan, pose as the Rangers head coach in that dorky picture he did with Chris Drury was probably, I'm sure it hit hard for some people who are hardcore Sullivan fans. But I do sense a lot of people in the fan base are very thankful for what Sullivan brought to the table all of these years, but there's also, I think, an excitement to see what is next, and that's probably the healthiest way to look at things. It was certainly a great run for Sullivan, even if the ending wasn't what he maybe would have liked it to have been. So he's moved on. The Penguins are going to move on, and it's just crazy right now. There's still 7 vacancies, I think, around the league. It's just an unusual time with this many coaching vacancies. The Rangers, of course, were quick to jump on Sullivan. I guess it's less than that because Joel Quenneville's the coach in Anaheim now, which is very interesting. We should discuss that as well. But as for the Penguin situation, it's going to be a while. We've talked about it. Joe, with Kyle Dubas in Sweden, with Team Canada at the World Championships. Not that he can't interview people over there, and he certainly is going to talk with people. But I think just logistically that slows the process down a little bit. But I also think, Joe, there's no real need for the Penguins to rush right now. That they could take their time and make sure they pick the right person. This is obviously no small deal, so I don't think it's something that necessarily has to be urgent.
Yeah, I don't want to rush into anything unless it's signing Rick Tocchet. I certainly want him to do his due diligence on everybody else. It's funny, even before the Ranger press conference, though, when after Sully was announced that he was leaving, I thought, it's gonna stink, and maybe I didn't realize how much it was gonna hit me. But just he was announced that they waited about a week for the press conference. They always do that in New York to make sure they have the carving table out for the ham sandwiches. Right. But I just woke up that Sunday morning, and I just felt sick to my stomach. And it really is, your girlfriend left for somebody who's better looking than you, that has more money than you, and they buy the house next to yours, and you have to see it every day because he's in our division, and they're going to be better than us for a while now. And it just kind of makes me sick because I have no animosity towards him, and I won't, because I love the man, and he's going to be coaching. He's just going to be beating us because he can. Is what's going to happen. And because really, Josh, it's the first time we've experienced this, because we all know what happened to Badger, and Scotty wasn't really ours. No. And Disco, go coach wherever you want, Disco. I mean, we certainly didn't want Mike Johnston, but it wasn't like we were in love with Disco after, whenever you don't know where to put, Jerome McGinley. I don't really care where you coach, but This one hurts. I mean, this is the equivalent of seeing Yager in a different jersey and seeing if Gino a holy hell move.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always say, Sullivan's the greatest coach in franchise history. He's not necessarily the greatest coach who has, coached for the Penguins. I understand you can throw Herb Brooks or Scotty Bowman in there, but for people who actually, spent any period of time with the Penguins, he's the only one who ever won 2 cups. That's the way it is. That's reality. And I know a lot of Penguins fans are, down on Sullivan and want to blame him for everything. And that's your buddy, Sully, blah, blah, blah. Well, gee, it sure didn't take the Rangers long to give Sully $7 million a year, did it? And if they wouldn't have, I assure you the Blackhawks wanted him, and I assure you the Bruins wanted him. That this is a very highly regarded man around the National Hockey League. And I think also you saw Team USA, how well prepared they looked in the 4 Nations. Like, this is a guy who knows what he's doing. And it's the first time in many years that Mike Sullivan will have a goaltender now, which changes things a little bit for him. And listen, I'm not defending everything that he did in Pittsburgh. He's not a perfect coach, but he was betrayed by goaltending time and time again for the last 5 or 6 years, really. And now he's got a great one.
I mean, Josh, we said this last week. His backup goaltender is better than any goaltender the Penguins have had since Murray was hot. Yeah. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer who's won 2 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And Corey agreed with me that many times Igor has had the Igor flu against matchups he didn't want. And Quickie stepped in 2 years ago in, I think, January, February, and really won a bunch of games and kind of saved the Rangers season and put them on a trajectory. How are you going to feel, Corey, seeing Sully behind the bench?
And apologies to those watching the live stream. Good Lord, the StreamYard, it just absolutely barfs sometimes for us. So that's the first time it happened live. But Joe, I did hear, like, whenever you went on DVE, and I that was like part of the clip I heard. I was like, man, that is true. Like, I am kind of sad about it. So I kind of ruminated over the weekend on it. I'm like, let me ruminate on this, because I wanted to come with a perspective that would maybe help you feel better, Joe. Sully wasn't perfect. He's a great coach, and he's probably one of the best coaches in the league. But I don't think nobody's perfect, but think of all the situational, all the situations he could have adapted to that he didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I know Josh, he has that quote that he came to you and said, do you see Connor Sheary and Brian Rust walking through that door? It's like, well, no, but Rucker McGroarty and Ville Koivunen could have walked through the door. Maybe they weren't quite ready, but like he just never wanted to play the young guys. And it honestly, towards the end, was more like the Dan Bilesma, we got to get to our game, and it was like, Sully, like, I love you, but maybe this team isn't going to play the way the 2017 Penguins did.
Well, I think I have 2 points to jump off with you, Corey. One is, I absolutely agree that he could have practiced a shootout. I mean, that's just points right there, or maybe practice having a strategy in overtime other than sending a 69-year-old man out to take a draw, actually having a system that it seemed like other teams did. But I'm more concerned about who's picking the coach. If it was Craig Patrick, or God rest his soul, Shiro, or or the man in Vancouver, JR, I'd be like, okay, well, I think we're going to get somebody. Maybe we'll get Quinville. Maybe we'll get Tocchet. Maybe we'll get somebody. I just hope is reinventing the wheel. And I've said this last week, and we put the clips out, so I won't bore everybody again. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want someone who knows how to run the wheel.
Well, no, I mean, that's fair. I mean, Dubas hasn't really been in this position before. And I'm curious to see not only who he ultimately selects, but also what ultimately goes into it, what he prioritizes. And the fan base seems to be pretty mixed. I wrote a column the other day, Joe, about our mutual pal, Rick Tocchet. And, I don't think Tocchet's going to end up getting this job. I don't think it's impossible. But I wrote a column the other day for The Athletic in which I said you can do a lot worse than him. And this idea that he doesn't work well with young players that some people seem to be pumping out there, I don't know if that's because he's 61. I'm guessing like this means you have to hire a 32-year-old guy to be good with young players or something. I don't know. I think he's actually really good with young players. And speaking of Connor Sherry, as I put in my column, like, why don't you ask Brian Rust and Connor Sherry and Jake Gensel what Rick Tocchet did for them when they arrived in Pittsburgh? I promise you, they will tell you, and they will speak very glowingly.
I thought you had two great columns this week, or maybe it was just one that hit both points. One was that Tocchet is a great coach, and B, recycled coaches do well. And almost every coach is recycled.
Right. No, I wrote, in fact, I actually did some research, which I hate doing, but I went back and looked. The last 19 Cup winners, 15, I think it is, have been won by coaches who had previously been fired. So I see all this talk on, I shouldn't base everything on Twitter, but everyone on Twitter like, don't hire a recycled coach, somebody young. And like, okay, there are bad recycled coaches out there, sure, but like Craig Berube's been fired. Mike Sullivan's been fired. Paul Maurice.
Scotty Bowman was fired.
Yeah. Like, so, just because you've been fired, like most of us have been fired or have lost jobs at some point in our lives. It doesn't mean we're bad at the job, or that you'll be the wrong person for that future job. It's just not that simple. I don't know what the issue is that so many people have with that concept. And I should mention Tocchet while we're talking about him, because he's always the first name that pops up in all these vacancies. We've actually seen him pop up on TNT the last couple of nights.
Thank God.
Oh, he's actually great on TV too.
I love it.
Yeah,
Biz me too. Cut him off last night, and like he was about to make a great point, and Biz just came right. I don't know if you guys saw that. I was like, "Come on, dude!" Like,
I did, but no, I the best TNT panel was when Talk was on. He just knows the game so well, and he's so likable. But listen, we know he's the guy that Philadelphia wants, right? That's no secret. I know for a fact that he would be interested in the Penguins job if there is mutual interest, and I don't know that there isn't. It's just really hard to get a feel for exactly how interested Kyle Dubas might be. But I can tell you there's another team out there that I have had a number of people tell me about in the last few days. Very interesting, the Seattle Kraken, who happen to be run by one Ron Francis, former teammate of Rick Tocchet's. I have heard they are very much interested in Rick. And Rick's son, by the way, lives in Seattle. Throw that out there as well. So it's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, Jim Rutherford at his press conference, because Jim just likes to come right out and say things. He said, Rick wants to be in the Eastern Conference. He wants to be in the East Coast. And maybe that ultimately is the case. But I have heard that Seattle has, some real considerable interest in Rick also. So it's just something to consider. There's a lot of teams. Boston, I've heard, certainly has interest in him. So he's a hot commodity, no question.
Well, that makes JR look bad if he just walks across the bridge and goes in Seattle.
Well, it makes the Canucks situation look bad, at least, and maybe him too. No question. Seattle's just a 2-hour drive south of Vancouver.
Yeah.
No, you're right. And it's not like Seattle's roster is anything spectacular, but you could say that about any of these teams, though. Like when I look at Seattle, Philadelphia, Boston, Pittsburgh, like there's no championships coming for those teams in the next couple of years.
When you look at every team, that's why, and I actually did call the Coach Q situation, not had any inside information. I just on puck off, I was like, Coach Q should go to Anaheim because he can enjoy the weather. There's not much stress, and it's a really good young roster.
Yes.
I think Anaheim next to the Rangers has the second best roster I take that back. Maybe Nashville has the second best roster, but
you've got some goaltending in Anaheim too. Like they're kind of set up to be.
Moskoy is a good goaltender. They have like 4 or 5 good young forwards. They have excellent young defensemen. It's funny that they moved Duma. How about Duma playing like 25 minutes a night for the Devils?
He was good.
Good.
Maybe that's what he needs is play more.
Oh, no, maybe. I mean, he was very good, no doubt. But no, I kept thinking about that Anaheim job last week. Like, there's no pressure to win there. It's a nice place to live. And there is, like, legitimate talent on that team. Like, they're not far away from winning. You could even see in the second half of this past season, like, they were starting to come on a little bit. They really were. So I'm interested to see how he does there. He's been away from the game for a bit, obviously. For reasons that we know about. But he's also, like you said, he's a Hall of Fame coach. It was an interesting choice, and I wouldn't be shocked if they take a little bit of a leap. I'm curious
Yeah,
to
I
see
mean,
what they
that's
do
all
with
that
free
team
agents.
it needs a good coach. You think Barbecue Bruce is going to make his way back in the league? I love Barbecue, and I love Barbecue. He's terrible in media. He needs to coach.
I thought he'd be better actually than me because he's always a chatty guy. He's very
Yeah.
entertaining to deal with. I don't know. I don't know. There are really mixed perceptions of him. I've had people tell me they think he's a great coach. I've had people tell me he's an awful coach. There's some people who are like that. Like Gerard Gallant's another guy. Like some people think Gallant's the greatest coach and he did all this great stuff with expansion teams. I've also had people pretty high up in the hockey world tell me like he's a buffoon. He's like a terribly overrated coach. So there's a lot of guys out there like that. Those are two of them.
Don't you think Gallant and to a certain extent Barbecue, though, they're kind of good guys. They're kind of motivating guys. They're kind of guys that get guys to play hard, guys that buy in, but they don't really have a grasp on, say, systems and how to outcoach, a Sullivan or a Cooper, or when you get to the deep end of the pool, you might have to make an adjustment that Gallant doesn't do, and Barbecue. I don't think Barke's made an adjustment in 30 years.
Yeah, well, Boudreaux, it's funny. When he was coaching in Anaheim, Ben Lovejoy was playing out there, and I asked him what it was like playing for Boudreaux. I said, "You're playing really well," and he said, "Well, the thing is with Bruce, you just kind of rim the puck out of the zone, and that's our system." He said with Bilesma, like he said, I think Dan's a great coach, but it was like trying to figure out like a trig theory every time just to get out of the zone. It was so complex. And he said for guys like Sid and Gino, yeah, they could do stuff no one else could do. So it was easy for them, but for the rest of us, it was actually really hard. Like we'd have to execute these plays that, we weren't always able to, whereas Bruce's system was basically hockey for dummies. Not that Ben was a dummy, by the way, really smart guy, but he said that made it simple. But I also think that's why Bruce never had any playoff success, because I don't think he ever changed what he did.
No,
I don't know if he knew how to.
Absolutely, but I will defend Bruce in this one respect. I mean, that was basically Sullivan's when he came to Pittsburgh. Just get the puck out.
Yeah, no, it's true. And Bruce's regular season record is no joke.
But to me, that is really all I ask of the Penguins is get the puck out. Because to me, that's how you can just tell two things about bad teams. They can't get the puck out or they're bad in the second period. That's the easiest way to tell a bad hockey team.
Boy, we did a lot of
the Penguins just couldn't get the puck out sometimes.
No.
A lot of times.
Yeah, they could do a lot of things, but that was one of them.
Teams took turns rolling the lines on us this year, like pretty regularly. I think it happened in like the third game. And Joe, you came on, you're like, I can't believe it. They're rolling the lines. It was like by like the third month, I was like, man, people just do this to us. I don't know. Joe, your 2 points, I mean, could not have stuck out more. In the second period, we were awful this year. I don't know. Barbecue Bruce, I like him. He's an interesting character, and it's just so hard for me. And I'm not, I'm not an in shape guy or anything like that. But like to see him and know that he was a phenomenal goal scorer in the AHL, it's just not like it's such a hard thing for me to frame. But I don't know.
It was a different league then, though. It was a different sport practically then. I mean,
it was like a beer league.
I mean, the guy literally was in Slapshot. So, I mean, that's Bruce, right? And Bruce was an awesome guy to deal with. I like Bruce a lot. Remember during the 24/7 show on HBO, the Penguins and Capitals?
Oh, yeah.
He was going to Haagen-Dazs with his wife, and everyone thought that was so funny. So the morning of the Winter Classic, back when we used to call it Heinz Field when it was there, they actually had the morning skate at the arena because the weather was an issue all day. That's why they eventually played the game in the evening. And I'm standing in the lobby, and Bruce walks in just out of nowhere into the media area. I'm like, it's kind of weird. Like coaches don't usually just walk in here. And he looks at me. He goes, "Hey, you know where the pastries are?" I said, I'm thinking to myself, Christ, you're a caricature yourself. I said, yeah, they're right over there. I just had some Danish myself. And he walked over and he like takes a big bite of a donut. He looks at me, he goes, yeah, fucking right. And then he just walks away. That's Bruce. I mean, he was not making up the character of Bruce Boudreau. That was just his authentic self. Players love him. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he's your classic good coach who's not a great coach. And I think the great coaches in the playoffs eventually would get to him more times than not. But the league's better when guys like him are in it. We need some throwbacks like Bruce around.
Yeah, no one takes a stuffy team that isn't having fun. You throw Bruce in, you go on a winning streak, and everyone's happy, and people are smiling at the morning skate. I wouldn't be serious though, because I could talk about Bruce forever. Do you think though that if Philly's offers on the table, maybe Rick just wants to screw around on TNT for a couple weeks, because maybe they would want him in Philly working if he signs the contract? Or why? Everyone knows Philly wants him. Why do you think he isn't the coach yet?
I don't know if Rick knows what he wants to do. I mean, listen, Rick was offered a lot of money by the Canucks, a lot of money. And he obviously wasn't happy in that situation anymore. Okay. It's always an option for him to go back to TNT. He was I don't know exactly what he was making. It was something million a year. They pay their TV talent unbelievably well.
Right.
He could still go there and make millions over the next few years and have a very stress-free, job and whatever. Now, is there a lot more money in coaching? Of course there is, no doubt. That's something to consider. I don't think he knows what he wants to do, and I think he's kind of taking his time. And I think there's multiple teams throwing pitches at him, and that's a feeling of power, I'm sure. But it's also, point for Rick where he needs to. This might be his final coaching job, so he's got to make sure that he's picking the right one. And I keep going back to the fact that all of these teams, whether you're talking about Seattle, Boston, whatever, like none of them are very good right now. Pittsburgh, Philly, like I don't think he's going to show up and just win right away. So that's something to consider.
No, of all those cities, it seems to me he'd have the longest leash in either Pittsburgh or Philly.
Yes. Oh, no question. I would agree with that completely. He would have had a long leash in Vancouver too, because I know what Jim Rutherford thinks of him.
Right.
But he wanted to bail out of there.
He'd be hanging himself with that leash if he did with Pedersen one more year.
Yeah, I think you're actually probably correct. Between him and Quinn Hughes, I think maybe Rick had enough. So yeah, it's like none of these are bad jobs that we're talking about either. These are all like traditional, except for Seattle, which isn't a bad job. But Pittsburgh, Boston, these are like traditional hockey cities. Chicago, for God's sake. Yeah. And even Philly. I mean, I know we may snicker at Philly, but I mean, Tocchet's a legend there. He's a former captain. I mean, he's revered in Philadelphia. So that's a big market, and they've got some young players there that can play. So I don't think any of these teams are ready to win, but none of them are terrible jobs either. And I don't know how you weigh which one is better than the other. I mean, you could really get into quite a debate there.
Now, a question we just had submitted, and this could be for Tocchet or anyone else that comes in that's new. But Matthew, thank you for the comment. But how much of a leash would a new coach have in Pittsburgh, given that Kyle Dubas is, kind of running the show? And I mean, he can pretty much walk on water in FSG's world, in my mind. Do you think that is a factor? Like you can't really stray from the path and do your own thing, I would think.
I mean, well, first of all, Kyle Dubas has 5 years left on his contract. He's got all the power. He is quite literally the most powerful man in the organization. I think even more than Sid at this point. It's easy to say Sid, but Dubas just decided to part ways with the coach that Sid loves. He traded Sid's favorite line mate ever last year. Like, I think that tells you who has the most power in the organization right now. It's Kyle. How much leash will a new coach have? He'll have some. I think I don't want to put a number on it, but it's not like he's going to get fired if he has a bad season, because I think we all know there's a chance they might not be very good next year. And this is about building for the future. So I think whoever comes here has a longer leash than a lot of other cities that are expecting to win right now, because that's just not where the Penguins are, frankly.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to get to the point where we're going to have the young guy or the college guy or whatever, the guy that's going to go with young talent, and he'll be here for 3 or 4 years, and then we'll end up having to get the, for lack of a better, the coach Q's or the guys that or Berube or someone to take you over. There's a lot of coaches to get you to the almost there. Then you have to bring in a guy to finish it off. It's almost like because Kyle has 5 years, he'll bring in the skills coach for the first 3 and then bring in the real head coach for the next 2.
Wouldn't shock me. Like, I don't think that's the plan necessarily, but it often works out that way.
Absolutely. I've been around a long time.
No, you know how it is. You'll find the guy who will help bring the young guys along, and they'll start to get better, but they're going to need something at some point that maybe that young guy doesn't have. And, it wouldn't shock me at all if that happens. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's a fascinating hire. And it's also, I think there's a lot of good coaches who might not be as interested in the Penguins job as they normally would have been, just because it is such of a transitional period. I'm curious to see how this unfolds. I don't know if the best coaches necessarily say, "Yeah, I want to be in Pittsburgh right now," because they see what Kyle's doing, and what Kyle is doing, he is, building. He's playing the long game here. He wants to build something special, but he's taking his time doing it. He's not trying to rush into it, and that might be the right move ultimately. But it's not necessarily something that's going to attract coaches right now.
It also. Is there just in real life there is, and I'm sure I guess hockey is real life as much as it's like our little fantasy world. Do you think there's just some old crusty 65-year-old pretty good coaches that don't want to listen to Kyle Dubas?
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course there are. I mean,
right. It's like
Dubas, fairly or not, is portrayed by many as kind of a new school, analytics driven kind of guy. And there are older people in hockey who want nothing to do with that. Now, I don't think that's necessarily an accurate way to look at Dubas. Like, I always go back to his first press conference in Pittsburgh. And I'd like the second or third question of the press conference. And I asked him about analytics and his approach and his reputation toward them. And he didn't, we get along really well, but he didn't like the question. he came right. I said, "Hey," he said, "I've been like scouting since I was a kid. I've been in locker rooms. I'm a locker room guy. Like I value those, good character people. And like, I don't care about spreadsheets. That's not what I'm doing all day." He made it very clear. He was sensitive to the fact that people look at him in that way. But they do. And of course, there are some people in hockey that roll their eyes and call him boy wonder, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, that's, and by the way, of note, since we always take things back to Rick Tocchet, I don't think he is one of those guys. I've actually been told Tocchet likes Dubas a lot. They worked together a little bit in the Four Nations face-off. They got along. Mike Sullivan and Kyle Dubas got along. Maybe not in the end. Maybe they had different visions in the very end. But Mike actually really liked Kyle. And I know how close Mike is with Rick Tocchet. So I'm sure they've had a chat or two about it.
Yeah. No, I think well, it's funny. I'm thinking as you're telling that story about Kyle Dubas and asking him the question, Josh, all I could think about was that like Dubas, crapped his pants on the school bus and then moved to a new district. And like you were the kid that was like, "Hey, aren't you the kid that crapped your pants on the bus at the old school?" And he's like, "Really, dude? Like, we got to talk about that? Like, can I be known for anything else?"
I'm not the biggest Brad Treliving guy, and I don't blame Dubas I thought he put a good team together last year for Toronto, but they are markedly a better hockey team this year under Treliving, who I don't think is a very good GM.
Well, how much do you think is that or Berube?
Well, I still see Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and I see Benoit's playing. I think some of it's Sheldon Keefe, seriously, but there's another. Oh, and they brought in the kid Carlo. Carlo, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Tanev. That's a lot better than the clowns he was throwing out last year.
It's
He
true.
did draft your favorite power forward in the league, though. I'll give him credit for that.
And we'll get to him after we talk to Bill Neofis, because I can't wait to talk about that series.
Before we get to Mr. Neofis, though, I do want to, Josh, I saw it in your mailbag. I have it listed as a question to ask you guys for last week, and we just ran out of time. So now we know we have the 11th and the 12th. Well, we have the 11th pick in this year's draft. We might have the 12th pick from the New York Rangers if they so choose to give it to us. I see the benefit of the Rangers holding it, not for the Gavin McKenna side, because I don't think they think they're going to be in that position. I think they see it as a possibility as a trade bait there's something to get that big rental piece that they need at the trade deadline next year. So that's why I think they're going to hold on to it. But what do you guys think they're going to do, and any insight into what's going on?
I have no idea, and I think you could make a fairly good argument for either side. You can very simply, if you're the Rangers, say, "Hey, we got Sully. We're going to be good this year. We're taking that 12th pick right now and using it because we're not going to be drafting that high next year," and that's perfectly valid. Now, you can also say, "Gee, that 26 draft is so much better than the 25 draft. The 22nd player in that draft might be as good as the 12th player in this draft, and maybe we'd like to have that 26 first round pick as ammunition in a trade." Because you don't want to go into the season without a first round pick. That takes away probably your best trade chip if you want to go buy somebody at the deadline, if you want to make a splash. So that's something to consider. Truthfully, guys, I have no idea what they're going to do. The Penguins are operating under the assumption that they're going to get the pick this year. Just they have to be safe, so they are prepared. But I still think their fingers are crossed. They'd really rather have that pick in 26 because they think that draft is just so much better.
Yeah, I think we're going to get the pick this year because I believe like Corey. I think that's a good draft. I think that's a good piece for a rental guy at the trade deadline.
It is, no doubt.
And I think that makes more sense for a team like the Rangers.
Yeah, because even the guy that you picked 12th now isn't gonna rocket up into the organization. You know what I mean? There's nobody that's NHL ready that's gonna help a playoff team. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, the second follow-up to that question is, and Josh, I've heard you posit this multiple times. Does Kyle Dubas use that to move up? Because I've seen it floated all over the internet that apparently the San Jose Sharks are okay with giving up their second overall pick. They, for some reason, don't value it, and they're willing to go down a little bit. That rumor is going around. Is there truth to that?
Crazy, by the way, because I don't know. I'm not a draft expert. It's not what I'm paid to do. But I will tell you that everybody who knows anything about this draft will tell you that Schaefer, the defenseman from Erie, and Michael Misa, the center, both in the Ontario Hockey League, are clearly the two best players in the draft. So I would actually love to have the number 2 pick in this draft. You don't have to pick between the one. You take the other one that's left, and if I'm the Sharks, all of a sudden maybe I have Misa and Celebrini down the middle for the next decade. That sounds like a good thing to me. It's an interesting thing for the Penguins. Do I think they'll trade up? Probably not. If you get the 11th and 12th picks in the draft, that's not a bad thing. I mean, those are 2 building blocks that you can add to the organization immediately. And the one cool thing for the Penguins, if you do, even though the draft isn't as good this year, that's still somebody sooner in the system. That's still 2 blue chip guys next month in the system that theoretically a year or 2 from now can help you win games. So that's not a bad thing for the Penguins. I think no matter what the Rangers decide to do, the Penguins rightfully will paint it as a positive. And, the fact is they have 3 first-round picks in the next 2 years. That's a good thing.
I would love to see them trade up and get the second best.
I would too.
Because then also, it's all going to come to roost. If all these guys are pretty good, hopefully they are, then there's only so I don't care how high the cap is. You can only pay so many of these number 1 guys anyway. So you can only have so many blue chippers. So I'd rather have one really, really, really. I'd rather have 1 A+ than 2 B+.
Yeah,
I agree.
If you draft a bunch of really guys that become really good, then you're just really good. You're not great.
Well, and I'll tell you, the case to be made for the Penguins trading up, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I don't know. But they've done a really nice job of adding some quantity in the last year, right? A lot of draft picks, a lot of McGroarty, Koivu, and I don't think they're going to be superstars, but they're good-looking players. Where's the star power going to come from in the next few years? That's the problem they have. Okay, Sid's still great. He's pushing 40 now. Where's the star power? I see a lot of good prospects coming. I don't see any great ones. At some point, you need that star power. If I'm Dubas, I consider it. I really do. I think there's a couple of guys in this draft that are clearly above the rest. And if San Jose is willing to talk business, you don't necessarily sell the farm for it because, like I said, You get 11 and 12. That's still pretty darn good, even if it's just an average draft. There's a chance you'll get a star there, even. Who knows? But I'd be tempted if I were Dubas, not only because you've got those top 2 picks, but look at all the second-round picks they have in the next 3 years, and all the. I mean, my God, there's going to be good players coming here.
Well, that's what I mean, though. I mean, they're going to get 30 good players. Why don't we just get 28 and get one super
There you go.
What if this is hypothetical? What if over in Sweden, McKinnon's just like, I can't believe the way they treated Rantanen. I should just come to Pittsburgh. What did Dubas? I would even let you give away Rusty. I'll let you give away Gino.
Gino, Rusty, and don't put Ange on the list.
No, I can't give him very close.
Yeah.
I mean, stranger things have happened. It has to make him sick.
Yeah. I wondered that. And, for those that don't know, Josh is on his way over to Sweden for the Worlds. And he's actually an undercover agent for the Penguins right now to sit down and have a sit down with Fleury, Nate, and Crosby and be like, boys, let's get the three of you together in Pittsburgh next year.
Might as well. I might have to say to Nate, listen, all these Colorado fans, for years and years talking about Sid coming west, like, have you ever been to Pittsburgh in the fall? It's very nice, Nate. We can talk about this. The Avs window might be closing, that Nate. You got to think about it, right?
There, you got the sales pitch down. I like it. I'll pick up the tab for wherever you guys go if you want to take him out to dinner.
I mean, he has to be chafed.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I mean, who couldn't? Which Avs player could be sitting there thinking that after that performance in the last 7 minutes of that game? Unbelievable.
And a few games that have followed, by the way.
Oh yeah, geez. We'll get to that here in a second. But Mr. Neofis, he's got to be loving seeing the Caps down 2-1.
Yeah, Bill Neofis is not just the best insurance man in Pittsburgh. He absolutely despises the Washington Capitals. We talk about this a lot. In fact, I don't know if I still think the Flyers are his most hated team, and we'll have to have him on one of these weeks and bring it up. But I assure you, the Caps are in his top 3 of teams he dislikes. He is absolutely enjoying seeing Ovi and company get shut down by the Hurricanes through 3 games. So yeah, just your weekly reminder. The Neofis Insurance Group, they've been doing it in Pittsburgh since the year Mavs beat the Yankees in 1960. Family-run business with the nicest people you ever meet in your life. Doesn't matter what kind of insurance you need. Car insurance, life insurance, apartment insurance, you name it. Go down the list. They will help you out. They will do it with a smile on their face. They take all the pressure off of you. They give you your options. They just make you feel good, and they take care of you. They really genuinely care about people, and I mean that sincerely. He's one of my best friends and runs a quality business. So that's Neofis Insurance. 412-364-3388. They're located very conveniently in the North Hills, or neofisinsurance.com if you want to do it the new school way. So either way, give them a call. Bill will make your life better. I promise you.
Thank you, Bill, as always.
Thanks, Bill.
And getting into the second round. So the first one we got to bring up is the Vegas Golden Knights Edmonton game last night. What an ending. For those that did not see it, Riley Smith, everyone in Pittsburgh and New York's favorite hockey player in the world, scored with 0.4 seconds left. And I don't know, Joe, I'm curious to what you think, because I tend to get like a little like fantastical in my thoughts on this stuff. But that to me feels like a shift that is going to lose a series. If you let a guy beat the forecheck 1-on-3 and get the puck, get the puck behind you, win the puck, get it to the center of the ice, and get a shot off, that to me just feels like. And I'm not burying McDavid because he's been unbelievable, but teams that do that stuff don't really win Stanley Cups.
Stu Skinner. Had actually played well up until that point. That was a terrible goal to give up, and it couldn't happen to a guy I dislike more unless it was Claude Giroux. I mean, literally, Riley Smith is in my top 5 of in the Crosby era top 5 hated Penguins. Broussard will always be number one, followed by Daniel Winnick, and then there's a battle for three through five. But yeah, it's funny. Who saved their bacon for Vegas last night was the original Misfits, the two old guys.
Yeah,
Wild Bill and and Mr. Riley. It's just an odd series. It's an odd series. Like, Corey Perry looking like Ducky Corey Perry. Leon being, I don't think McDavid's really been incredible this series yet. Every time I want to say good things about Edmonton's defense, they let me down. It's just, and Vegas is just kind of going through the motions. This is a bigger point, but I think the only series with real juice is Big Cats and the Leafs. Yeah. Every other series just looks like it kind of contesty mid-season game in February.
Yeah, the Vegas Edmonton series. First of all, that was an unbelievable ending. Like, that was, 4/10 of a. Come on, Riley Smith. He almost smiled, for God's sake. That takes a lot to get any emotion out of the noted sourpuss himself. But I saw a little smile on his face there. Good for him. Vegas has had Edmonton's number over the years. They typically slow McDavid down more than most. They know how to play against him. I just feel like Vegas, for whatever reason, has never really been at its best in this postseason. Like, they beat Minnesota. They were pretty good in games 5 and 6, but I never felt like they elevated their game, as high as capable. And, we haven't really seen it yet against Edmonton. I don't know what's wrong with them. I just feel like they're kind of stuck in neutral. They're playing okay. They're not Eichel has not really taken over a game yet, or really even come close. Like, he needs to be better. I suspect whoever wins Game 4 of that series probably wins the series. If Vegas can even it up in 2 of the last 3 at home, I'd probably lean toward them. But as it is, I don't know. I still think Edmonton is playing at a higher level than I expected them to be at in this series. I don't like Vegas's game. I think Edmonton's still in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, Jack Eichel, he played good like game 3 against Minnesota. He kind of woke up and had like a game or two. And he's kind of going back into his shell. I think Stone's dinged up because Stone doesn't seem like Stone.
Gotta be.
He's messing around with Barbashev. Yeah, they just don't look right. And and Hill is not going to be. He's not going to be Patrick Waugh. So
it feels like you knew that if that game went to overtime, Edmonton was going to win. Like, they were carrying the play. Like, there was no question. To me, in my mind, I was like, oh man, I hope they better hope this little play goes in, and then it did. Like, oh, okay, they did win.
It's interesting how the ref missed it live. Like, it hit the camera.
Like, everybody, like, nobody, even I think who was the play-by-play guy? He did say crossbar, but I think he was saying like the referee indicated crossbar. Like, it went in. Like,
unbelievable. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row now. We've seen literally a goal scored that decided a game with a second left. I mean, this is, the NHL cannot be unhappy with the quality of the product and some of these finishes. That's for sure.
No, I don't know which series you want to go to. I think we should do the Big Cats and
let's do that.
I think we should do them last because I think I can talk about them forever.
Okay. No, we can. That Vegas one, we'll see. I agree. Game 4, we'll see who wins, and I think that takes the series. Let's just get the Caps and Carolina out of the way, because Josh, before you joined, and Joe and I were just sitting here talking about everything, I said, that's just some terrible hockey. Like, it's like all-star game level. I mean, it's not that bad, but maybe all-star games in the late 80s. It's just boring. There's not really a whole lot going on.
Let's blame Carolina for that, because
Carolina's for sure.
We're a good team. I honestly have a hard time watching when I'm covering a Penguins game against them. Like, I already know it's going to be a 3-2 loss, right? Like, I've read this book before, and I'm just like sitting there in these games. It's excruciating to watch. I mean, it's not entertaining the way they play. I can't blame Washington for that. I mean, that Washington-Montreal series was fun.
Oh, it's great.
They've got Washington, you got the Tom Wilson factor. Things can get out of control. You got star power with Ovi. They're fun to watch. This is just Carolina doing what they do. They know how to shut teams down. They know how to win low-scoring games, boring games. But it doesn't feel like a playoff series when I'm watching these games. Like Montreal, Washington felt like a playoff series. That was nasty. It was entertaining. It was fast. This just feels like a game in November when I'm watching these games, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I called out Martinook, and I said, "Who does Carolina have against Tom Wilson? Martinook? He put Wilson on his ass and kind of changed the tone of the whole game." So I take taps of the stick to Jordan Martinook on that. His terrible Tommy ran wild in game 2. But I'm going to say something that may be controversial, may get hits on the internet. I think Ovi looks tired. I think Ovi looks like he did last playoffs last year when he was ineffective. He was not Ovi on the power play. He was not dynamic at all.
No, he wasn't. I agree. And Carolina is, for a star player, they're probably the worst team to play against. Like, ask Sid who he hates playing against. I guarantee you Carolina's one of the first teams he mentions. They just make it difficult for you in so many ways. But I agree. And Ovi, especially 5-on-5, like, he's been invisible in these games. And we know he doesn't move the way he once did, obviously. But yeah, I mean, he's almost 40 years old. He does look tired. And it was against the Rangers last spring. He was terrible in that series, at least for his standards. And Washington, as good as they are, they played well without him this season. But to beat a good team at this stage of the playoffs, they need Ovi to put his numbers up. And Carolina's making it difficult on him.
Especially the second half of the season. Ovi was dynamic. It's like, having him not play nearly that good is killing them. And another guy I knock a lot, Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson's played really good.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know. No, yeah. I mean, he has. He's never been a bad goalie. He's never been a great one. He's always been kind of, an okay guy.
Been hurt when it matters.
Right. But to their credit, I mean, listen, we make fun of the Canes a lot, regular season Rod and everything else, but they're playing really well. Like I think they're going to win this series. I think they've been the better team clearly through 3 games. They're in a really good spot right now. I don't know if they necessarily have the star power or the offensive capability to go any further in the playoffs past Washington. We'll see, but they're just shutting them down. They're just so hard to score against. I remember last year I was talking with Jeff Carter, and I said, why hasn't this team won in Raleigh in like 6 years? And he very clearly said to me, he said, listen, they're the only team in the league that makes you play 200 feet. Like, they're just in your face. You could be 180 feet away from their net. They're in your face. They're just a different kind of team to play against. And he said, I'm not a star player. And he knew he was at the end of his career, but he said, when I was a better player when I was younger, I hated playing against guys like that. He said, trust me, Sid and Gino and all the great players, like, they do not like playing against teams like that. And they don't. And you're seeing it so far in the series.
Yeah. And Marcy, I see your comment there about the Pens need to model their game after the Canes. Good Lord, please no. I want winning hockey, but I don't want it like that. Not like this. Like, any other way. To me, we talked about it a little bit whenever Ovechkin was going for the record, if there was going to be a little wind out of his sails. And to me, that appears to be, like, he's a great player, but he's the age that he's at. The feat that he just accomplished, not just beating Gretzky for all time, most goals in NHL history, but the season he had.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not surprised that he might be just like, I mean, he put everything into that. So, because we all were thinking it was early next year that it was going to happen.
Yeah. No, what he did was remarkable this season. But I will say this in regards to Ovi and the Caps, and this is part of his legacy. And he's one of the 10 greatest players who ever lived. He's obviously one of the greatest goal scorers who ever lived. But he's been there 20 years. They've made it past the second round of the playoffs one time. That's an incredible thing. And for whatever reason, playoff success has never been synonymous with Ovechkin and the Capitals. They look good in the first round, but I really think they're in trouble.
That is a great point. But even besides his goal scoring this second half of the season, after he came back from the broken leg, his passing. He was
Oh,
playing physical. His
know.
whole overall game was impressive. Well, it's like he was sitting in his office racking up goals and is only playing the power play.
No, he was great. He was. I mean, he turned back the clock. He
Yeah.
absolutely did. But I don't know, how long you can keep that up at his age. We see it. Listen, we've seen it over the years. The all-time greats in the playoffs. That the fatigue is real. I mean, when Mario came out of retirement in the 2000-2001 season, he was automatically the best player in the league. But we saw it in the second round against Buffalo and then New Jersey. He ran out of gas. Like it happens because the playoffs will do that to you when you're in your 30s.
That's what I'm saying. He just looks tired. And I'll tell you, Montreal gave them all they could handle. They didn't cakewalk through that series whatsoever.
Those games were close. You're right. No, they were.
No, I think the Caps are in trouble, and unfortunately, that would mean we're watching Carolina for a third series.
Speak for yourself. I will watch something else.
Yeah, over in the West. Back over to the West, we have Dallas now taking a 2-1 lead over Winnipeg, which to start the series. Good Lord, Mikko Rantanen. Nobody was hotter than him. If he was at a craps table, I would have been standing there betting whatever he was betting. He was on fire, and I didn't get to see. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't get to see a lot of the game today. But it looked like from what I was picking up on the internet that Dallas kind of took control more than halfway through the game.
Oh, Mikko again had a goal and 2 assists today. Joe, I don't remember the last time a guy went on a run like this in the postseason for like 5 or 6 games. I know Draisaitl and McDavid have put up some incredible numbers, of course, in recent years. But Mikko has been great. And the thing about Mikko Rantanen, we've talked about this, when he was traded to Dallas, he didn't look great for the first month or so. Really, the end of the regular season, they lost a bunch of games in a row. Penguins went down there and beat them that Saturday afternoon game in Dallas in early April. Mikko Rantanen was invisible that game. I think I noticed him one time all game with the puck. Completely invisible. And I remember thinking to myself, like, he doesn't look right. Like, he's not fitted in here. Like, something might be wrong with this team. And boy, was I wrong. It just took him a little bit of time, I think, because starting with Game 6 against Colorado, he's on a binge right now. I mean, this is an extraordinary display.
Yeah, I think we said last week the last time I saw someone just put a team on his back like that was Jagr in '99 when he saved the franchise.
Yeah,
I mean, the last time someone literally just said, "No, we're not going to lose this series. We're going to win. I'm going to do it." Today, Dallas kind of just showed up to be the better team. Corey, I think it was 2-2 going into the third, and then Dallas scored 3 in a row. They're just better. They're just better than Winnipeg, and kind of bad Hollaback creeped in. It's like, can you make an excuse for every goal? Yeah, but can you stop one? You're allowed to make a save, Josh.
I know.
Right?
No, he's been so disappointing. And what would we be saying about him if they don't score with 1 second left in Game 7 against St. Louis? The narrative would be that much worse for him. But yeah, when I watch these games, I saw some of the game today. Dallas is better. Dallas on paper is the best team in the league right now. That doesn't mean they'll win the Stanley Cup. We will see. It doesn't always work out that way. There's no weakness on that roster. They are so loaded, so deep, and they're so good at home in the postseason. And with the way Rantanen is playing, like, listen, Robertson's been pretty quiet. Like, they've got big names who haven't even had a big moment just yet. That's how good and how deep they are.
Hintz has played very well.
Yes, he is. Oh no, he's been terrific. I think he had the first goal of the game today. Listen, I respect what Winnipeg's done this season. That's a really good team. But I'd be awfully surprised if they win this series. This has like Dallas and 5 or 6 written all over it the way they're going.
I mean, I think they're, like I said, I think Winnipeg is Carolina West. I think they play hard and they play a system and they have a bunch of good players. And Connor's excellent, but he's a little better than Svechnikov. Aho's excellent. He's about Scheifele. After that, you got a bunch of pretty good third liners. But then Dallas has a bunch of really good first liners. Like Dallas's third line would be, Dallas's third line would be a lot of teams' second lines.
Yes. Oh God, yeah. And we haven't even gotten into their blue line and how good it is when they're healthy.
They don't even have Mira right now. So
Yeah.
the regular dude I see, do you mean the game today? Yeah, whatever they were reviewing in that Winnipeg Jets game, I don't know what was going on.
Was that the game-winning goal? I think.
The 5 minutes to decide something
Yeah,
and I know, Josh, you love replay.
I hate instant replay. I'm not going to go on a tangent about it because it's late and we have other things to discuss. But when it just takes away 5 minutes of your life and it's really obvious in 10 seconds what the correct call is, I just get tired of hearing people say, you got to get the right call. Like, I will remind you, it is the entertainment business as well. You got to have some kind of a balance there. That's all.
Yeah. And Ottinger, I think, we had the comment there. I think he is proving that he can be the dude just as much as Hellebuck can. And
no, I said beginning of the series, I said how Ottinger can go a little Hellebuck in the postseason, not pure choke, but just get tired it out or just not play up to his ability. This kind of really is whoever comes out of this series is gonna have kind of the narrative change around them.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I was putting that up there, is that Ottinger is surprising me this playoffs.
I would have gone to my head. I'll take Ottinger over Hellebuck any day of the week, and I hope Sullivan does for America's sake.
Yeah, more importantly,
yeah, no, seriously. Like I've always been an Ottinger fan. I just think either he plays too many. That was my biggest thing when they brought in the midget this year. I'm like, they're gonna have Casey DeSmith play 30 of these games. I went Ottinger to rest. I didn't want Ottinger to have to come in a third because Casey DeSmith gave up 5.
And I think that's been the issue with Ottinger. He's played too much in the past. He's worn out.
Exactly, Josh. So
he looks good. That whole team, they just have that look right now, don't they? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but man, beating them 4 out of 7 is not going to be easy.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, which I don't know, maybe I am, I would be thinking about placing a wager on them. Speaking of the great Olympics happening next year in Italy, the Pope is American. So I don't know. Do you guys think maybe we're getting some divine intervention? We'll actually win the Olympic gold? That hit me earlier today. I was like,
it's quite a swerve, Corey. I wasn't expecting to get into to mix sports and religion on this podcast.
They're going like, okay, well, who do we pray for? Like, we're going to pray for Ottinger.
I'd rather talk about the Pirates.
Now the Pirates really need religion on their side. So
we're talking about a team that's lost.
The Pirates need Wiccan. They need a witch. They need an exorcism. I am going to go to S&M night though.
Oh yeah, with the belt. That's unbelievable. Like
for the national audience, if you don't know, basically an usher at a Pirate game took off his belt and was whipping a fan. And it was the only excitement they've had in that stadium in about 3 years.
Amazingly, that's like the 4th worst thing that's happened for the Pirates this year.
I was gonna say, like, just this season, I know we don't talk Pirates on this podcast, but like a man almost jumped to his death at a game. An usher is beating people with belts. The Clemente family was disrespected, and the brick incident, like that's all happened in the first month of the season.
They misspelled McCutcheon's name on his placard at the autograph signing and posted the picture on social media.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. So
they're just so embarrering. But anyway,
like 40 games under 500 before Mother's Day.
That's right.
Yeah, they're just on fire. Let's get to the final series. Toronto and Florida. We just saw. And boy, to me, it looks like Sergei Bobrovsky is not letting his team fall out of this. They played great team defense in the game tonight, but Bob makes some big saves at the right time. And
his blocker save on Nyes when Nyes had the backhander in front of the net. That was big time. Yeah. Those are the saves of why your name is on the Stanley Cup and Hollerback's name isn't. That's the difference in Stanley Cup winning goaltending. And Nyes on the breakaway. This is the only series to me that seems like they're playing for the Stanley Cup. Yeah. This series has juice. It's exciting. And I'm just going to say it flat out right now. Matthews and Marner suck. And you can blame them for everything. I can't blame Tavares. I can't blame Nylander. I can't blame all the other guys putting their asses on the line. And Joe Wall played his ass off in that today.
Yeah.
Matthews and Martin are in the power play. They're skating around like it's preseason.
I know. Matthews in particular, there's something, he hasn't been great all year, but in big games, like, has he ever shown up at a big game? Like, really? I don't think he has. And they're not going anywhere if he doesn't. Like, he's still their guy. All those other guys are stars, but he's their guy. Okay. You need him at some point. And look at the situation they were in. You win the first 2 games at home. You're up 3-1 in the second period in game 3. Like, Florida was very much on the ropes. And to their credit, they did what champions do. They don't die. And they just, they came at Toronto in waves. And when they won game 3, you kind of said to yourself, like, uh-oh. You could feel it. And now Florida shuts them down tonight. I would certainly list Florida as the favorite to win this series. Doesn't mean they will. Not a lock. I think whoever wins this series ends up in the Stanley Cup final.
For sure. Against Dallas. I don't know if you were driving, Josh, you were listening, but they had a stat on TV. You know how the Rat won game 3 in overtime? They had most goals scored against the Toronto Maple Leafs in playoff history, right? Number 1 and 2 tied at 53 were Alex Delvecchio and Gordie Howe, right? Tied at 3 and 4 with 33, 20 goals back, but still tied for third place was the Rat and the Pocket Rocket, Henri Richard.
There you go.
So you talk about some big time names next to the Rat. I mean, and plus, give Maurice credit. I know the Panthers roster pretty good. I'm like, why is he not playing those? Like, why is he not playing Gadovich? Well, he did in game 3, and they literally just took, like, oh, Toronto, oh, you guys think you're tough now, huh? You guys think you're tough, right? Nah, you're still Toronto. And they laid the wood.
Yeah, they did.
Game 3 on. It's been, other than Nyes, which is not, but I know I love Nyes, and he's not Michigan. No, I finally he's Wisconsin. So, but other than Nyes and like Tanev, a lot of the guys disappeared. A lot of the guys disappeared in game 3 and 4.
And number 34 more than anybody, and we see it every spring.
Yeah,
we saw it in the 4 Nations. I fear we might see it in the Olympics next year. He is a great player. But in the playoffs, he doesn't rise to the occasion. That's why it's always amazing to me that, for years now, we hear McDavid, takes all this shit about he hasn't won a cup. Look at the numbers he's putting up in the playoffs. He hasn't won a cup. Guess what? He's probably going to. And they haven't lost in the playoffs every year because of him. Whereas I look at the Maple Leafs and I say, you can argue they have lost in the playoffs a good bit because of Matthews. He is not a dominant player in the playoffs. Far from it. And I don't know, how you solve that, but if he doesn't figure it out, it doesn't matter what the rest of that team does.
Dominant is one thing. How about just how when it's a 6-on-5, he's the furthest guy from the net?
Oh yeah,
like he's not in the shooting position. He's not in front of it. He's not digging for pucks. At least Tavares and Nyes and Pacioretty and even Nylander, even Marner.
Nylander's great in the playoffs.
Dirty.
Yeah.
I love Prince Willie, but I'm just saying, but Matthew's the guy like skating around, like throwing the puck to the point. Like, get in there and fight.
Yes,
he's so far removed from any like action on the power play.
Yeah, no, it's a huge. If I'm a Maple Leafs fan right now, my single biggest concern is that guy. When's he going to show up? Because he's going to have to deal with a whole lot of Barkov. But the thing is, Florida didn't even play Barkov that much against him in these 2 games. In Sunrise, like Lundell was out there a lot with Marchand.
Well, Lundell's such a good player, and they got the rat just to screw with them. I mean, you can't beat the Panthers.
No, and at the end of
they're
the game,
going to have the excuse, Josh. They're going to have the excuse of, oh well, Bennett ran over our goaltender, and Stolarz is a better goaltender than Joe Wall, and Joe Wall did not play good in game 3, but he played incredible tonight. Yeah. It's not his fault they didn't score.
Edzo pointed it out on the second goal. Like whoever, if you played hockey at any level, even beer league, oh, it's a 2-on-1 and I'm coming back. Like, he's taking the pass, and if I can get to the guy with the puck, I'm taking the guy with the puck. And then your defenseman's pointing and saying like, yeah, go there, take that guy. It's just like, it was a great goal by Bennett, but I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, leaving the guy with the puck all by himself. I don't know. You can't.
I love the nastiness of this series too, and that favors Florida, by the way. The more it turns into an alley fight, and I didn't see the end of the game actually as I was on my way on the drive here, but I just saw the clip on Twitter. Max Domi throwing a nasty hit at the end of the game on Barkov, and there's great video of Tkachuk on the bench telling Nylander he was going after him in Game 5 just because of that hit. I totally believe Matthew Tkachuk when he says that. So
it was great. He was laughing, and Nice is like, "What about me?" And he's like, "I don't care about you. I'm going after Nylander." Yeah, I mean, Domi, that was just stupid.
Yeah, it really was.
He's probably going to miss the game. Who are they going to put in? Robert or Jason Roberts' little brother, or they're going to bring in the world's most expensive DJ? Like they needed Domi.
Yeah, that was a dirty. No, they do. He's actually a pretty good player, and he gives them some depth. It's just dumb. The game was over. You don't beat Florida picking a fight with them. That's I don't know how you beat them because they just won't die. But I promise you're not going to win an alley fight against that team. That's just not the right approach.
But Barkov is so confident that he didn't even stay down to get him thrown out of the game. He's like, I'm not even hurt. Right. I'll see you Wednesday in Toronto. I don't want you suspended.
Right. Yeah. That team is just I respect that team. They are so unflappable. I mean, I don't know if they have the juice to get through 10 more wins to win another cup. They might. I mean, somebody's got to do the job. And one thing I will say, Bobrovsky he was okay against Tampa. He hasn't been great in this series so far. He finally was tonight. If he heats up, they're going to the final, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless they just fall asleep playing Carolina.
Well, that's what I was going to say. My biggest fear in all of this is because I've been saying that, the third time through, you run out of gas eventually. That's why it's so hard it's almost impossible to do a third time. But if they play Carolina, that might be the thing. Like, they might not have the energy to fight through that slog, which would be a nightmare, having the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. Wow. We lived through that. I love you, Ron Francis, but we didn't need to see that in 2002. That was one of the worst performances in the Stanley Cup final. So
I don't want to think about what the TV ratings will be if they play in the Stanley Cup final.
It will not be good. Yeah, and then thankfully this time, poor Ron, he got knocked out. Remember, got all confused on the ice. Right? No. Wasn't it against the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup final?
When Ron played his last year as a Maple Leaf, he got destroyed by Stevens.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's right. It was when he was a Maple Leaf. That's right. But anyways, yeah. So
that's one thing I could win on Jeopardy. Your Ron Francis history.
There could be it could be like a sitcom segment, like a through line in a sitcom episode. Bartnick on Jeopardy, and he's just crushing it because it's Penguins Jeopardy.
Yeah. No, it sounds 70s detective shows and National Hockey League. That's my two go-to.
We'll save the quarter century team for another time. But I do want to get your thoughts real quick on the thing. I tweeted it out whenever I saw it. I said, it's really interesting to see that Jonathan Toews didn't make the quarter century team, yet he was one of the best 100 players in NHL history. So I don't know. Does it look like a little bit of a course correction by the people that choose these stupid lists that make us mad? Because Gino's on there, and we can dig into that list later. But I don't know. Jonathan Toews, are you surprised he's not on the quarter century team?
No, not really. It's actually to the point where he's one of those guys who was so overrated for so long that now he's probably almost a little underappreciated. Like, he was a really good player. For a long time. It was kind of sad the way his career has come to an end with the health problems. But no, I mean, he just wasn't that great of an offensive player compared to some of the others on this list. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I was there that night in Los Angeles when they announced the top 100 players of all time. The look on 66's face Like his face was a different shade of red. He was so mad about it. And Jim Rutherford told me that he was as furious about that as he ever has been about anything in his hockey career. So they were speaking for the Penguins fan base that night for sure.
Well, you know, and I don't have the list in front of me, but I do think Kucherov didn't make it, right?
Nope.
To me, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Well, Yager didn't make it. And I know it's like 25 years, but like from 2000 to 2006, 7.
He was still quite dominant. Yeah.
Well, he was dominant when he was a Ranger in like 2010, I think, right? So, yeah, I wish they would have had I wish the demarcation is after the lockout.
Yeah, because it's a different sport.
I would agree.
Well, and plus it's just like, because it's almost like you got to throw Patrick Waugh in there because he's Patrick Waugh. But I mean, is he really from this century? Because Vasilevsky should be in there instead of him, in my opinion, and for this century.
Yes, I would think so as well. When I think of Waugh, he did win a cup in 2001, but he was really at his best in the 90s and the late 80s.
Yeah, 86.
86, he won a cup. 93, he won a cup. I mean, and 96, right? So
it's almost like you didn't need to give it to Vasilevsky. Like, why did Waugh need that? I mean, really, Waugh needs that?
No, you're right, Corey. It should be from the lockout on. Because really, that was such of a big transitional period. It was a completely different league in 2005. And of course, that gave us the emergence of Crosby and Ovechkin. But yeah, stylistically, everything changed. The game opened up. That was really the dividing point. So instead of just saying, the century, those first 5 years there was a lot of weird things going on there. When Mario was still the best player in the league when he came out of retirement the first 2 years, he still had Yager, and it was just kind of a weird time for the league. So I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. I just, in all these things that happen like this, I always just wish that's where it starts. And that's kind of where I mentally start these things when we have these arguments.
Yeah, there's a before and after the lockout for sure. And like really one of the only people that bridged that gap was Yager. Because I think he win the Art Ross in 06, the first year out of the lockout.
No, he tied, right? I think Thornton actually won it.
But like he has like the rate. I'm going to be wrong, so people can tune in or not tune in right in. But I mean, his year as a Ranger, it's a single season scoring record for the Rangers.
Oh yeah, no,
I mean he was incredible that year.
Yeah.
A couple guys can bridge it without me being like they're from the last generation. To me, it's like a generation. I think Nick Lidstrom does.
Yeah.
And Scotty Niedermayer kind of does.
Yes.
That's
fair.
But I can't think of too many other guys that they were just as good on both sides of the crevasse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No.
I hate these lists, by the way. Like it's inspired to, start conversation, and that's what we're doing, I guess. But like what do they really mean? Like they don't really,
because you only had 1 year of summer programming. As a man who's done hockey podcasts for 13 years,
there you go.
They're a lifeblood in August.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, hey, that'll do it for us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Keep your eyes peeled for Josh over in Sweden. You're gonna be talking to Flower and Sid a little bit, I assume.
Of course, and Mr. Dubas is over there as well, the GM of the Team Canada. So I might as well have a word with him about what's going on as well. So
yeah, everybody will start a GoFundMe to find whatever we got to do to bribe and get McKinnon over here and Fleury. I mean, my pitch to him is why not? We want you to start 25 games. Just come hang out in Pittsburgh for the year.
Some tickets. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that'll do it for us. And enjoy the hockey, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll talk to you next week.